Hello everyone and welcome to WhatCulture Gaming. It is Monday, it is the morning, it is a grey and depressing Britain, and that can only mean one thing, that Josh and I are here to discuss some news for you lovely, lovely people. But that means only one thing. It is time to hit that jingle.
What's that? There's news? Oh my gosh! Guess it's time for Jules and Josh!
Oh,
it's been a long time. I'm not used to it.
I know that your knees recover just about, they explode out again. Much like the amount of fury that is exploding out onto the internet right now because the PS5 and the Xbox Series X they're on the horizon. In 2020, we will have new consoles adorning different areas of our living room. Good times, maybe, because you'd have new games, you'd have new experiences, new ways to play. And according to this latest announcement that we've just found out from Sony, we'll have new ways to buy microtransactions. Oh yes, it's time.
Yay! A new generation, a new way to buy microtransactions. Yes, this comes from another in a series of long patent leaks from Sony. This essentially goes along with the PlayStation AI from a few months ago. I'm not sure if you remember that. That was essentially, the Alexa or Siri or something like that. Essentially, you ask PlayStation for help, and PlayStation responds and tells you exactly what to do. But this has gone one step further. And it's essentially going to suggest, ways for you to complete tasks in a game. But it turns out that some of those ways will include buying stuff from the in-game store. The patent works from essentially you ask PlayStation, and I'll get the exact quote because they did a nice little illustration for this. They said, hey PlayStation, how do I get past this boss? And then the PlayStation 5 responds, 80% of players like you used Resource X, and then the screen will flash up saying, Resource X, buy it now, which, is entirely dystopian.
Now, this is the thing. If you think that this is a bit of hyperbole, this is an actual image that they released of a child sitting there asking its controller, hey, PlayStation, how do I beat this? And it's saying, buy this now. Now, I have a huge problem with this because as we were talking to Scott just before we came in, this isn't just something that is baked onto the game's disc and is exclusive to a singular publisher or their brand of villainy. This is embedded into the hardware. Yeah. This will be something that will follow you around and basically adapt itself to the situation that you're looking in. You might be listening to a track. It might come up on, because Death Stranding made a huge thing about you could link your Spotify account up to that. Yeah. It might then just say like, oh, do you want to buy this track on Apple Music or do you want to do that? There's no way that this is not going to bleed into every aspect of the PS5. And if they do this, then this actually could be a shot to the head for the system straight away. The thing that people don't want is ads all the time. Mm-hmm. Trust me, we work on YouTube. We know how little you want to see these two ads at the 10-minute mark, but you're going to get them anyway.
It's got to happen, it's going to happen.
But the thing is that imagine that every minute.
No, I know. It's a difficult thing to look at because obviously it's only one example, and you'd assume if you were, being optimistic that this would work in a way where it would only provide you with a prompt to buy something if that was, what was the most efficient way to get over something. If that was what the data said, if that's what people had used in the past, but at the same time, it's not something you can just kind of inherently trust because that sucks already, and it shouldn't be the first response. There was talk in one of the articles I was reading about this, essentially, because Sony wants this to replace walkthroughs. Sony doesn't want you going on your maybe going on your phone while you're on the throne and looking up a walkthrough. They want you to ask the PlayStation directly, and that will give you an answer. But if that answer is just one of many, and that answer is prompting you to buy something,
I think that's really underhanded.
It is a little bit, isn't it? We've seen this before, man. We've seen it. Other companies file patents for matchmaking that puts you with people who have bought microtransactions, which makes you want to buy microtransactions and stuff like that. So this insidious stuff has been going on for a while. Yeah. But it's just when someone like Sony does it, especially because Sony has a lot of goodwill, they haven't really got into the microtransaction game like even Microsoft has in the past. So to see them use this as an example is worrying.
My two big issues with this is that I think that this will have, if it is to be believed as this image suggests, this will actually lead to a negative impact on game design as a whole. Yeah. Because you will have companies that just go like, right, okay, what we're going to do now is put in a really unfair difficulty spike here so that it will actually prompt players to then buy microtransactions to get over. And in normality, people would be like, that is ridiculous, that is so unfair. But now that Sony has basically said, no boys, here's the exact platform and hardware encoding to allow you to do this, they're basically encouraging those situations. As you said, they want this to replace potentially walkthroughs, but what they're going to do instead is basically make an allowance for bad video game publisher traits.
Yes.
We've seen the likes in like Shadow of Mordor, when that came up where it had microtransactions in really awful places. You would pause the menu and it would tell you could go to the shop and buy resources and minerals, or constantly have characters say, do you want to go and buy this or do that? That was them without the ability to do that in your face. Adding that in is just going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Obviously DICE as well, they reportedly made their servers for Battlefield 3 or 4 or one of them particularly bad in some areas, aka map rotation wouldn't go for the player favorites on purpose to encourage people to go and buy their own servers.
Yeah.
You're basically giving power to the people who should definitely have no say over your wallet, bar the entry cost of these games.
It's frustrating because on the one hand, all of those examples you mentioned are great, but I have to hope in the the ability of the human spirituals. I have to hope, because every single time this has come up before, we've had stuff like Shadow of Mordor. In all of the games you mentioned, for the most part, had intense backlashes to them, which meant they eventually had to, alter their behavior or change things. But we shouldn't have to do that.
But you say that they alter it, but it was a case of what's the classic expression? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Right.
But basically, if they'd come out straight away and just said, guys, we're going to put microtransactions in this way, fans would have just been like, no thanks, not for me.
Yeah.
But the fact that they did it single-handedly, changed it, manipulated it, and they just tried what they could get away with, and then had it curb stomped down to actually be what is acceptable. But then you've got other companies like Activision, particularly bad. When it came to the Call of Duty franchise, they added in microtransactions after the review period. So you can't trust the publisher. So therefore, why would Sony ever make allowances to make it easier for them to manipulate people? Because there was a huge talk. This discussion of microtransactions has been going on for years now, and with all of the furore about gambling, is it legal to have kids be able to have access to easily purchasable materials? Why is Sony playing into their hands by saying, we're going to put it in the bloody forefront of the game?
You're absolutely spot on, and the answer at the end of the day is just that microtransactions make so much money. It sucks, but like you can see it from a business perspective. It's essentially a treasure trove that they would be kind of stupid to give up on entirely. We've just had a bunch of the Q3 reports from the big companies like Take-Two and Activision and a bunch of others, and year after year, the in-game purchases and the amount of profits that are made from in-game purchases keep going up. So on one hand, it would be dumb for Sony not to do it. On the other hand, it sucks because I feel like the soul of gaming is just being torn apart with each annual conference call.
Like, don't get me wrong, like you and I can sit here and we can bemoan the state of microtransactions, but one need only look at the likes of Grand Theft Auto 5 and look at how much money it's making per week. That is more than most games have as a budget for their entire thing.
But everyone was showing me this morning that it's again the top third selling game of last year. This game is nearly 7 years old, and because people keep going on it and then buying the stuff inside it, and it's a phenomenon.
It is. It's unbelievable because people will spend their money on this because it's always like microtransactions. It's in the name. It's only tiny increments. I just really worry that there's a lot of ways to abuse the system that Sony has implemented. If in the example that they had in that leak, which was 80% of the players beat this boss using this item. Now, the rarity of that item is likely going to be higher than most other things. It's just, I don't know, how are they going to capture the data to make sure that it's actually accurate? Because what they might do is not tally the data for common items being used against this boss. It might just be like, to beat this boss, a lot of people used like the Feather of Armingdor, like that, and that's a common item. But what they might be only tracking the data of in order to sell it is the Feather of Armingdor's arsehole. You know what I mean?
Well, exactly right, because they could say, most people beat the boss by using this common weapon, or then, or you could beat the boss the fastest way by using the arsehole, and that's when it sort of becomes a bit of a problem. It's when you have to get down to the nitty-gritty of exactly what data is being tracked and how it's presented. Because for me, if it was just a PlayStation Assistant thing where I asked for help and then it gave me one one prompt and said, you could buy it, that's enough for me to ignore.
Yeah.
But if it's like what you said before, if it's constant ads or something popping up, if you keep dying to it and it keeps suggesting this microtransaction that you might want to buy to beat the boss, that's when it becomes intrusive and invasive.
If it's all down, this all boils down to one thing: how it's activated. Because if it is something that will never pop up unless you press the home button and say, hey, PlayStation, how do I beat this? If it is something that is a reactive thing rather than an aggressively marketed thing, we won't actually have that much of an issue, because most people, I'm still assume, will just go, how do I beat this? Oh, they use that. Do you want to buy it? No, not really. I'm just going to watch the walkthrough or whatever. At least I know now what most people were using. But if it is, I died, and then it tells me in the loading screen, or it then prompts me to do it without me having any interaction with it whatsoever, that's when it gets worrying.
Because it sucks. As much as I think I'm a strong-willed guy, you know, there's only so many of those that I can keep seeing over and over again, because they work. They wouldn't be in there if they didn't work. And I can sit here and say, you know, for me, I don't really care if I keep seeing the prompt because I'm never going to buy it. But that's not the same for everyone. There's a reason why these things are so successful. And there's a reason why you keep trying to be implemented in the same way, and it does. If it doesn't weigh you down, it makes it more appealing. If you're dying and you're seeing this, it's some kind of, you know, reinforcement that maybe I should buy it.
But that reinforcement is like, it could actually be used in a negative psychological way. Imagine if you were playing a game, right, and you died. What if that game, instead of just saying like, oh, do you want to try again? What if it showed you how many times you died against it? Instantly, you would be put into a mindset of like, oh, I'm not good at the game. And then it goes, shining light descending, do you want to buy this thing for 50p that will make your life a lot easier? That is a really underhanded, insidious marketing technique, and I bet you anything we'll see that.
Well,
death trackers will be the future if they want to sell stuff.
Exactly what you were saying earlier on as well, because this is kind of annoying as it is, but if it's doubled with bad and intentionally obstructive game design, when you get to something like the Tomb of the Legionnaires from Anthem, where you have to grind your way out to the next mission, if you get to something like that, that's intentionally implemented for you to then want to either skip it or want to, you know, make it easier, that's when it becomes properly kind of insidious and damages the games, and very, very, very frustrating. And it sounds like, you know, we're being kind of mad in that we're saying, well, this is the worst case scenario, and you might be thinking, well, they're never going to do that. They've done it before. It's not like, it's not without precedent. The only reason we're worried so much is because they've done it before, and they shift and they try it again, and then they shift and they try it again when they get called out, and now we're at sort of this point.
I'm just worried that this is obviously before we've had any sort of confirmation about much of the PS5. We know it's coming out, and then to lead with this, I mean, it's just, obviously it might not be like this. This is just us basically showing you what it could be, the worst case scenario, like you say, but fingers crossed, it will all be rosy come holiday season of 2020.
Don't let me down, Sony.
Please, you've been so good so far, apart from Niflheim in God of War. You could have done without that, couldn't you?
Oh God,
I'm going to
I erased that from my memory. That was such a grind.
I'm actually doing a list. Right. I'm actually doing a list on worst moments of the best games. And that's actually going to be anyway, not a point. Thank you so much for watching this, and we will keep you updated as when more leaks inevitably come out, and if this changes, we'll let you know. But until then, let us know what you thought about down in the comments section below. As always, you can follow me at RetroJ with a 0 over on Twitter, and you can follow Josh at
Josh Broom with 2 O's.
You are damn right you can. Whatever you're getting up to today, hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.